It's almost mind-boggling to think that the way we organize our arguments, the very concept of a well-reasoned thought, owes a huge debt to a guy who lived over 2,000 years ago. Aristotle wasn't just some dusty historical figure. His insights were, revolutionary, and it all started with a simple act: observing the world around him, much like his father did as a physician.
What's truly fascinating is that Aristotle didn't just observe passively. He developed a systematic way of looking at things. A blend of careful observation and rigorous reasoning that laid the groundwork for so much of Western thought. It's like he gave us the instruction manual for how to think clearly.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving deep into today. The intellectual powerhouse that was Aristotle. We've got a comprehensive educational analysis here, packed with his ideas on everything from logic to living a good life. Now, for you, our listener, trying to get a handle on such a vast body of work can feel like climbing a mountain. Where do you even begin with Aristotle?
It's a valid question. His influence is so pervasive that it can be hard to see the roots.
But think of this as your expertly guided ascent. Our mission is to extract the most crucial insights, those aha moments that illuminate his core thinking and still resonate today without getting bogged down in every single detail. We're aiming to give you a solid understanding of his lasting impact on how we think and live, touching on logic, ethics, science, and even politics.
Precisely. We want to make these powerful ideas accessible and show you why they remain relevant to your own quest for knowledge and understanding.
Okay, let's begin at the beginning, with Aristotle's roots. Born in Stagira, his father's profession as a physician wasn't just a family trade. It seems to have instilled in young Aristotle a deep appreciation for observation and classification, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Imagine the dinner table conversations. Observing symptoms, categorizing illnesses. That's a very practical introduction to systematic inquiry. It's likely this early exposure shaped his approach to understanding the natural world and even abstract concepts.
Then, at 17, he journeyed to Athens and the legendary Plato's Academy, spending 2 decades there. That's like being at the intellectual epicenter of the world. He must have absorbed Plato's teachings like a sponge.
Oh, for sure. He was certainly deeply influenced by Plato, especially the emphasis on abstract reasoning and the theory of forms as the ultimate reality. He would have been immersed in rigorous philosophical debate and, the pursuit of ideal knowledge.
But our sources highlight that he didn't just become a carbon copy of Plato. He eventually charted his own course, developing a more grounded, empirical approach. It wasn't really a rebellion, but more of a natural evolution, questioning the idea of these separate, perfect forms.
Yeah, what's insightful here is that even within Plato's formidable shadow, Aristotle began to forge his own intellectual path. He maintained a respect for abstract thought, but increasingly emphasized the importance of studying the world we experience through our senses. This divergence marked a pivotal moment in the history of Western philosophy.
And after Plato's death, he really broadened his horizons. His travels, particularly his time on the island of Lesbos researching natural history, sound incredibly important for the development of his biological theories. Imagine him there firsthand, observing the intricacies of the natural world.
Right. It was a crucial period of empirical investigation. Living on Lesbos, he conducted detailed studies of marine biology, meticulously observing and categorizing different species. This hands-on experience provided the raw data that would inform his later, more theoretical work in biology and zoology, moving him beyond pure philosophical speculation.
Then came his role as tutor to Alexander the Great. Talk about a change of scenery and influence. While the direct impact on Alexander's military strategies might be debated, it certainly placed Aristotle in a unique position, close to immense power.
It undoubtedly raised his profile and provided him with connections and resources, even if the precise nature of his influence on Alexander's conquests remains a subject of historical inquiry. Following that chapter, his return to Athens and the founding of the Lyceum marked the true establishment of his own philosophical school and his distinctive approach to learning.
The Lyceum, with its peripatetic method, those walking discussions, it creates such a vivid image of a dynamic and engaged way of exploring ideas. It wasn't just lecturing, it was a shared journey of discovery.
Absolutely. The act of walking while discussing fostered a more informal and interactive learning environment. It encouraged continuous dialogue and the exploration of ideas from multiple angles, shaping a unique intellectual culture within the Lyceum.
His later years faced some political headwinds, didn't they? The shift in power after Alexander's death led to him having to leave Athens. It's a sobering reminder that even intellectual giants are not immune to the currents of history.
Indeed. While his life concluded amidst political uncertainty, his intellectual contributions had already taken root and would, continue to flourish for centuries, shaping the course of Western thought in profound ways.
Okay, so we've got a good sense of the man and the world he inhabited. Now let's delve into how he actually thought. Our source emphasizes his groundbreaking integration of empiricism, that hands-on observation and rational analysis, that logical reasoning. This sounds like the real engine of his philosophical approach.
It truly was a revolutionary synthesis. He didn't see observation and reason as opposing forces, but as complementary tools for understanding the world. He insisted on grounding philosophical inquiry in careful observation of the natural world, collecting and classifying data before applying logical reasoning to draw conclusions and formulate general principles. Think of his work in biology, detailed descriptions of animal anatomy leading to broader classifications and theories about animal behavior.
So the process was, first, you observe meticulously, then you use logic to analyze what you've seen, and finally, you'd abstract general principles from that analysis. It's almost like a blueprint for the scientific method that would emerge much later.
Precisely. His emphasis on systematic observation and the logical analysis of empirical data laid a crucial foundation for the development of the scientific method. He championed the idea that knowledge should be grounded in the real world, not just in abstract speculation.
And then there's his development of formal logic, culminating in the syllogism. Sounds a bit intimidating, but the classic example, all men are mortal, Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal, really clarifies that it's about the structure and validity of an argument, regardless of the content.
Exactly. The power of the syllogism lies in its deductive structure. If the premises are true and the argument follows a valid form, then the conclusion must necessarily be true. His collection of logical works, the Organon, provided a comprehensive system for analyzing and evaluating arguments based on their form. It was a monumental achievement that shaped logical thought for centuries. Think of it as Aristotle providing the very rules of engagement for rational discourse.
The rules of engagement for rational discourse, I like that. It highlights how fundamental this contribution was. Then we come to the doctrine of the four causes. This always struck me as a very comprehensive way of explaining why things are the way they are: material, formal, efficient, and final. Could you walk us through that again using the bronze statue? What's so insightful about this framework?
Well, what's so insightful about Aristotle's four causes is that he recognized that understanding something fully requires looking at it from multiple interconnected perspectives, not just how it was made, but what it's made of, what its form is, what brought it into being, and even what its purpose is. So for the bronze statue, the bronze itself is the material cause. The shape or design the sculptor had in mind is the formal cause. The sculptor's actions of hammering and shaping are the efficient cause. And the purpose of the statue, perhaps to honor a hero, is the final cause. This framework emphasizes that understanding requires considering not just the mechanics, but also the inherent purpose or telos of things.
That idea of a final cause, a purpose, does feel quite different from how we often explain things in modern science, which tends to focus more on mechanisms, the how, rather than the why in a teleological sense.
That's a key distinction. Yeah.
Right.
Modern science largely focuses on efficient causes, the processes and mechanisms that bring things about. Aristotle's emphasis on final causes reflected his broader view of a universe where things had inherent tendencies and purposes. It's a different way of framing the question of why.
Okay, next up is hylomorphism. The idea that everything is a composite of matter and form. This sounds somewhat related to Plato's forms, but with a crucial difference, right?
Right. The crucial difference from Plato is that Aristotle believed matter and form are inseparable in physical objects. Form isn't some perfect blueprint existing in a separate realm. It's the specific structure and organization of matter that makes a thing what it is. Think of a cookie cutter, the form, and the dough, the matter. You can have different shaped cookies, different forms from the same dough, matter, but you can't have a cookie without both. The form gives the matter its definition and essence.
So the form is the organizing principle, the blueprint that gives shape and identity to the raw material. That makes a lot of sense.
Precisely. It's the inherent structure and functional organization that defines a substance.
And then we have potentiality and actuality, which seems to be Aristotle's way of explaining change and development. The acorn becoming an oak tree is the perfect illustration of this.
Exactly. For Aristotle, things exist in a state of potential. They have the capacity to become something else. The acorn has the potential to become an oak tree. The process of growth and development is the actualization of that potential. It's a dynamic view of the world where things are constantly moving from what they could be to what they are. This concept applies not just to physical growth, but also to the development of skills and capabilities.
It paints a picture of a universe in constant motion, a continuous unfolding of possibilities.
Precisely, it highlights the dynamic nature of existence and the inherent drive within things to realize their full potential.
All right, we've explored how Aristotle thought. Now let's turn our attention to the substance of his ideas, starting with the organon. We've touched on its significance for logic. It's remarkable that this work provided the framework for logical inquiry for so many centuries.
It truly is a testament to its comprehensiveness and rigor. The categories laid out the fundamental ways we can classify and describe things. On interpretation, explored the relationship between language and thought. And prior analytics and posterior analytics delved into the intricacies of deductive and inductive reasoning, providing a systematic toolkit for constructing and evaluating arguments. Think of the organon as Aristotle's instruction manual for thinking logically, covering everything from basic definitions to complex arguments.
Then we have physics and metaphysics. The titles themselves suggest a vast scope, covering both the natural world and the more fundamental questions of existence.
They do. Physics is Aristotle's exploration of the natural world, motion, change, the elements, and the cosmos. He uses his concepts of potentiality and actuality, the four causes, and hylomorphism to understand how the physical universe operates. It's a very empirically grounded inquiry. Metaphysics, on the other hand, delves into the realm of being as being, exploring fundamental questions about existence, substance, essence, and the ultimate principles of reality. Essentially, physics asks, how does the universe behave? While metaphysics goes deeper and asks, what is the fundamental nature of that universe?
So physics is about the mechanics of the universe, and metaphysics is about its underlying reality. That distinction helps clarify their scope. Now let's move on to ethics, particularly his Nicomachean ethics and the central concept of eudaimonia, often translated as human flourishing, and the guiding principle of the golden mean.
Eudaimonia is indeed the cornerstone of Aristotle's ethics. It's not simply happiness in a fleeting sense, but a state of living well and fulfilling our potential as rational beings through the cultivation of virtue. The golden mean is the practical guide for achieving this, emphasizing that virtue lies in finding the balanced middle ground between two extremes. Courage, for example, is the mean between the extremes of recklessness and cowardice. What's so incredibly practical about the golden mean is that it shifts the focus from rigid rules to the nuances of character and judgment in specific situations. It acknowledges that morality isn't black and white.
That idea of virtue as a balance point feels very intuitive and applicable to everyday life. And our source highlights that Aristotle believed virtue is developed through habit. It's not enough to just know what's right. We have to practice doing it.
Precisely. Aristotle argued that moral virtue is acquired through repeated action. We become just by performing just acts, courageous by performing courageous acts. It's a process of habituation that shapes our character over time. He also placed great importance on virtuous friendship, seeing it as essential for mutual growth and support and living a good life. And it's worth remembering his Eudemian ethics as another important, potentially earlier exploration of these ethical ideas.
Moving from the individual to the community, we have his politics. His famous assertion that humans are political animals really encapsulates his view of our social nature.
It does. For Aristotle, our capacity for reason and language naturally leads us to form political communities, the polis, where we can deliberate about justice and the common good. He saw the state not just as a necessary evil, but as the natural context for human flourishing. He analyzed different forms of government, seeking to identify the one that best promotes the well-being and virtue of its citizens.
It's important here, as our source reminds us, to acknowledge the criticisms of his views on things like slavery and the role of women, which are clearly problematic from a modern perspective. It highlights that even the most influential thinkers are products of their time and can hold views that we now find deeply unjust. We need to engage critically with his ideas, acknowledging both their lasting contributions and their limitations.
That's a crucial point. Engaging with historical thinkers requires both understanding their context and critically evaluating their ideas in light of our own values.
Then there's his Poetics, which is considered the earliest work of literary criticism. It's fascinating that he applied his analytical framework even to the art of storytelling, focusing on elements like tragedy, catharsis, plot, and character development.
It laid the foundation for much of Western literary theory, offering insights into the structure and emotional impact of dramatic narratives. His analysis of tragedy, particularly his concept of catharsis, the purging of emotions through pity and fear, has been incredibly influential in how we understand the power of storytelling.
He truly had an encyclopedic mind. delving into everything from the workings of the soul to the behavior of animals, the mysteries of the weather, and the art of persuasion in his rhetoric.
His intellectual curiosity was boundless. He sought a comprehensive understanding of the world in all its diverse aspects, applying his principles of observation and logical reasoning across a vast range of subjects.
So we've journeyed through Aristotle's life, his methods, and his key works. Now for you, our listener, why should all of this matter today? What's the enduring relevance of these ancient ideas in the 21st century?
Well, his emphasis on careful observation and systematic reasoning remains absolutely fundamental to the modern scientific method and to the development of critical thinking skills. In a world overflowing with information, your ability to analyze evidence and construct logical arguments, skills Aristotle championed, is more crucial than ever for navigating complexity and making informed decisions. So for you, as someone navigating a complex world of information, understanding Aristotle's emphasis on logical reasoning provides a powerful tool for evaluating claims and forming your own well-reasoned conclusions.
And that focus on virtue ethics, on cultivating good character, seems to be experiencing a resurgence as a valuable approach to contemporary moral dilemmas.
Yes, the renewed interest in virtue ethics highlights the timeless relevance of Aristotle's focus on character development and the cultivation of ethical habits as a pathway to a flourishing life. It offers a compelling alternative to purely rule-based or utilitarian ethical frameworks when grappling with modern moral complexities.
And his political philosophy, even with its historical limitations, still informs our understanding of citizenship, the common good, and the very purpose of the state as a community.
Absolutely. His exploration of different forms of government and his emphasis on the state's role in fostering the well-being and virtue of its citizens continue to shape political discourse and our understanding of civic responsibility.
Plus, his foundational work in logic remains the bedrock of effective argumentation and clear reasoning, providing the essential tools for constructing sound arguments in any field.
Precisely. His contributions to logic provide you with an invaluable framework for analyzing and constructing coherent arguments, a skill that benefits you in countless aspects of life, from professional discussions to personal relationships.
And I think his holistic approach to knowledge, seeing the interconnectedness of different fields, offers a valuable counterpoint to our increasingly specialized world, encouraging us to see the bigger picture.
That's a crucial takeaway. In our age of increasing specialization, Aristotle's integrated approach reminds you of the importance of seeking connections across different domains of knowledge for a more comprehensive and nuanced understanding of the world.
Let's look at some concrete examples of his enduring influence. Our source mentions his impact on biological classification.
Right. His early attempts to categorize animals based on shared characteristics, such as the presence or absence of red blood, laid the groundwork for the science taxonomy. While our understanding has evolved dramatically, his systematic approach to observation and categorization was a foundational step in biological science.
And while modern biology doesn't subscribe to the idea of final causes in the Aristotelian sense, there's still a sense of purpose in biological systems through the lens of adaptation and natural selection, isn't there?
You're right. While the mechanism is explained by natural selection, the outcome, the adaptation of organisms to their environment, can be seen as a contemporary understanding of how living things are fitted for their roles, echoing Aristotle's emphasis on the inherent tendencies of things.
And the resurgence of virtue ethics, we mentioned thinkers like Alasdair MacIntyre. How are they applying Aristotle's ideas in modern ethical thought?
Contemporary virtue ethicists draw heavily on Aristotle's emphasis on character, moral habits, and the importance of community in shaping ethical behavior. They apply these principles to address modern ethical dilemmas in fields like business, healthcare, and technology, offering a different lens through which to consider moral issues.
And in the realm of politics, his ideas about civic participation and the common good continue to be central themes in discussions about democracy and governance.
Absolutely. The idea that active engagement in the community and a focus on the well-being of all citizens are essential for a thriving society remains a cornerstone of democratic thought, deeply influenced by Aristotle's political philosophy.
So, to bring it all together, what would you say are the 2-3 most impactful takeaways from our deep dive into the world of Aristotle?
Firstly, I'd say the enduring power of combining careful observation with rigorous logical reasoning as the foundation for knowledge. Secondly, the profound importance of cultivating virtue and good character as the path to human flourishing, to eudaimonia. And thirdly, the understanding of the political community as a natural and essential context for achieving the good life for all its members.
And for you, our listener, We hope this exploration has provided a clear and insightful overview of Aristotle's monumental contributions without feeling overwhelming. You've gained a glimpse into his thinking on logic, ethics, science, and politics, and can now appreciate how these ancient ideas continue to shape our modern world, hopefully sparking some aha moments as you connect these concepts to your own understanding of various fields.
We trust this deep dive has ignited your intellectual curiosity and provided you with a valuable framework for understanding a thinker whose influence on Western civilization has been truly profound.
So here's a final thought for you to consider. Aristotle placed great emphasis on finding the golden mean, the balance between extremes. In our increasingly polarized world, think about how you engage with differing viewpoints. Are you striving for that virtuous middle ground of understanding and compromise, or do you find yourself often pulled towards the extremes? It's a concept with timeless relevance for how we navigate our social and political landscapes.
Indeed, reflecting on how to find that balance in various aspects of your life, from your beliefs to your actions, can be a powerful application of Aristotle's wisdom today.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until our next exploration, keep seeking knowledge and finding those insightful connections.